All right, everybody, this is Omar Lyles, the mental health coach, and we are here today with a brand new topic for this year, for the year 2024, in the month of February. And I'm proud to have these brothers back here again. So we're going to be talking about the trauma. We're going to be talking about trauma. The trauma that was already there. And we got some buddies here, and they've been here for a very, very long time here on Guy Talk of Omar, the mental health coach with Agape Love Network. So at this particular moment, I would like each and every single one of you to actually introduce yourselves.
Sure, I'd be happy to
All
go
right, let's
first.
start off with Robert.
Hello, everybody. I'm Legend Damian Simmons. I'm a professional entertainer and actor. Currently have been on a tour with Inspired 23 Productions, producing two different shows, which is Love Under Contract and Love Under Contract: The Call, which is a show that's coming up soon as well. Also deal a lot with my community and things like that, and I'm always down to have a great talk that can help people. So, and I thank you for having me on, Doctor.
Hey, what's up? My name is AB Bracewell. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the Pennsylvania area. I'm the founder, owner of Embrace Wellness Therapy. Author, but more than anything, one I love talking to the brothers, sitting down, having the conversations. Today we're having a very important conversation about trauma, so I'm just happy to be a part. Thanks for inviting me, Omar.
Man,
Thank you.
no
My name is
problem.
Jared. Thank you. My name is Jared Bargany, and I'm also the host of Lost in Translation podcast on YouTube and on Instagram. And I'm also a host on multiple YouTube channels from time to time as a host, and we discuss marriage and dating and relationships, and also mental health as well too. So thank you for having me this evening.
All right, all right. We're gonna get the ball started. All right, this conversation will be open and it will actually be transparent. We'll be talking about trauma in our personal lives and how we as men overcame them and how we cope with them in our individual lives. And so, when it came down to this topic of trauma, what that was already there personally in our lives. What did you think about the topic, and how did you? What did you think about when this topic actually came into mind?
I mean,
Anybody can jump in.
when I heard the topic, the trauma was already there. Um, it made me think of a lot of stuff, but it definitely made me think of how all of us have dealt with some level of trauma, in some type of way, and how it always impacts us differently. So you know, as I thought more about the topic, the discussions, and just the subject of trauma. Um, I, and just what I do on an everyday basis, working with families and kids, it just made me think of how much trauma impacts us and how it affects our relationships, how it affects the way we function. It just affects everything in our lives. Right now, I work with kids in a high school in the Philadelphia area, and the amount of trauma that kids have gone through before the age of 14 is like staggering. So my heart really goes out to them, and it goes out to my older clients as well. Just trying to help them through that trauma, and of course, it made me think about the different levels of trauma that I experienced in my life. So I guess it just took me on a journey of thinking about how important this topic is.
The thing that I thought about when you brought the topic up, the first thing I thought about is baggage. You know what I'm saying? We take our life experiences, things that happen to us, the drama that we have, and we kind of drag it with us from relationship to relationship, not knowing what to do with it, not knowing what to deal with it. And sometimes we conceal it from our spouses and our loved ones without anybody knowing it. And we operate in that baggage without letting somebody know. And it makes it difficult to connect sometimes whenever you have a situation that you're dealing with and you really don't know how to deal with it. So, and then you have to try to have people to tiptoe around you with on eggshells, that type of thing. And it also affects our responses and how we respond to different pressures and things like that that may affect us. And then it also thought about, how other people have secret baggage that they haven't really learned how to deal with yet. And then we're just trying to navigate this world. So that's the first thing I thought about when it came to this particular topic.
Mm. When it came down to this particular topic, I can resonate pretty much with all three of you. In my personal life, I had my own experiences of trauma, and I've had to go through my own phases of where I had uh, suffer from trauma from my own personal experiences and how I have gone through it. I had my own therapist, in my personal life. And so trauma is something that we've held inside of us from some particular action that was outside of us that we have experienced in our lives, and we have carried them. And sometimes when we have people in our lives, we do not know how to handle it. And as a matter of fact, they do not know how to respond to us from our own personal issues that we have. And sometimes we don't know how to balance them out. So with me, I had to learn how to focus on myself, how to navigate, through my own personal life, and how things could actually help me, personally. So the question that I want to ask is, what coping mechanisms have you found effective in dealing with your own personal traumatic experiences? What has helped you in your personal life, with your own traumatic experiences?
As far as with myself, first thing is admitting that these things actually happen. Because a lot of time we speak in and we have these things that happen and we try to deny them because maybe it's too crazy, maybe because it hits home too close, maybe because we're embarrassed about some of the things that might have happened to ourselves or things that we've seen. So, a lot of times we go and we suppress that. And then later on, when certain situations arise or something triggers you, those things come out and you almost forget of where they come from until, like I said, something hits you and you kind of know, wow, yeah, that really did happen. So one of the very first things is basically admitting that this trauma did happen, this did coexist, this is a thing. And the next thing is about, okay, what are we going to do to fix it? Because when we go through traumatic experiences, a lot of times it's going to affect how we move in life, how we react to people, how we trust people going forward, things like that. Sometimes we become the worst enemies of the people that gave us the traumatic experiences because we feel, okay, that got done with me, so I'm not going to be the victim next time. So that's one of the, like I said, the first thing is admitting, almost like when you have a problem, because having trauma, it is a problem, and not dealing with it, it is a problem. So first thing is admitting, yeah, I went through this trauma did happen. And the second thing is, okay, what do I need to do about it? And because at the end of the day, you don't want to be taking those things out on people that you love. You don't want to push away people that you love because of what you might have went through from others.
Hmm.
I totally agree with that. Um, I think one of the things we definitely have to recognize first that there's so many different types of trauma. So I think a lot of us, when we hear the word trauma, we automatically think of like a horrific event that happened that we get that PTSD type feeling, that
Mhm.
that fight, flight, or freeze feeling when something reminds us or triggers us of a trauma. But when I started thinking of myself personally when it comes to trauma and how I overcame certain levels of trauma, I had to realize that my trauma wasn't like that. I've never been involved in like a horrific car accident. Um, you know, I grew up in violent neighborhoods where there was killings and stuff, but it didn't, it was never directed towards me. So I can't say I've been shot or I was incarcerated, and all those things can bring different levels of trauma. But I think the type of trauma that I dealt with is something that we call like developmental trauma. It's like when you grow up in a certain environment where everything is so horrific. There's a lot of violence. There might be a lot of drug use. Just a lot of you know distasteful behavior. So much so that it almost seems normal. like, cause, like if I can remember a time where I was at a party and we're just dancing and a guy got shot right next to me. The music stopped for a second,
Mm,
but they pushed him out the party, and we just kept on dancing. Now,
mm,
in a normal situation, you know that would be very traumatic for people. But when you grow up in a environment or in a neighborhood where people get shot every day, it seems normal. But you don't realize that you kind of getting traumatized by that. So what happened with me? Um, I had to put up a shield. I had to put up a guard. I was very defensive. I was always on a lookout for some type of danger. So you grow up in that survival mode, not realizing that all these things that was happening around me was traumatic. And it wasn't until I got out of the environment that I grew up in and went away to like college, where the environment was not as dangerous. And people weren't out to rob you. If you could go to a party and don't worry about somebody getting shot right next to you. But I was so used to growing up with that type of defense that I went into that environment functioning the same way. So if someone looked at me, I think they had a problem. If I see some guys I don't recognize, my guard is immediately up. Um, you know, Women, I didn't trust them because I grew up in an environment where you could get taken advantage of ladies. So I grew up in a level of trauma where it was developmental and it was just inside of me. And I took that to an environment where I didn't need that level of defense. I didn't need that type of stuff, but it messed up the way I functioned and the way I adapted in that environment. So for me, of course, talking to someone helped, but just surrounding myself with with the right people, that was different from me and pointed out some of my maladaptive behaviors. It helped me a lot. So I had to hang out with some real honest brothers, some honest sisters that are like, listen, you don't have to act like that around us. We're not trying to hurt you. We're not trying to rob you. Like, it's all love here. So it
mhm,
was that was a big part of my adjustment in getting over that developmental trauma that I grew up in.
mm,
Sometimes trauma creeps up on you, man, and you really don't even know what to do with it. You know what I mean? And normally, what happens is you are the first person who's aware of it, and then we might not always know how to deal with it.
mm,
I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, if you're driving, all of a sudden the police turn the lights on. You know what I mean? Automatically you're like, oh man, what's going on? Will I make it through this? This traffic stop. You get this pit in your stomach. You know what I mean? And you have that happen to you enough times, man, and it kind of makes you leery. And sometimes what happens is when trauma keeps us from the help that we need sometimes. Say for instance, if you're in the hood, you be like, oh, don't call the police, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing. When you really should call the police in this particular situation, but you really don't know what to do with it. But those are some of the things that you have to be self-aware of, how your body feels in certain situations. Now, like AB said, sometimes it helps to find somebody to talk to at first. And then once you realize, hey, this is a little bit deeper and I don't know what to deal with this. Sometimes at that point, you need to find some type of help, to find somebody to help you navigate those situations so you'll know how to deal with it. Because it may be this type of trauma this time, but who knows, it could be something else later. But it does help to at least take care of it a little bit at a time, so that way you'll know how to handle it going forward. It's just one of those things. How can you deal with your trauma in certain situations? But getting help from friends at first is good to help talk it out, and then after that, if it continues, then you should always seek some type of professional help to help you navigate that, because we're always limited by the information that we have ourselves. So sometimes we need to lean on others who have more information than us.
mhm,
And sometimes as men, we don't always like to think that we don't know enough. We like to think that we know more than we should. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that there are people who are professionals who are trained at this, who know how to help. And sometimes as men, we have to make sure that we open ourselves up to help because we don't normally want help. So admitting that you're having a problem and releasing the macho, so to speak, to get help is one of those first things that we should always do whenever we experience some type of trauma.
Yeah, you're right, man. Acknowledgement is probably one of the first steps to your healing, your journey to getting there, the process for you helping yourself so that you can actually get better. One of my experiences, one of the traumatic experiences that I had was being held at gunpoint and being robbed. It's really not funny, anything like that. But that moment, my life could have been snatched away in a twinkle of an eye. And when that experience happened, I sort of was triggered for a moment because every single day I kept looking over my shoulder, and I kept saying to myself, dang, that person is probably out there trying to get me, you know? And so I felt like I wanted to be in the house for a little bit, but I know that I had to get out there. You got to go to work every day. You're traveling, you're jumping on the train, jumping on the buses, and going every places and stuff like that. So, but I knew that uh, limiting myself and my personal life, that I have to get up and go out anyway, because uh, fear is sort of pretty much like a killer, and it'll destroy you in a way, physically and mentally, because you start to think different. You start to think that everyone's out to get you, because of that traumatic experience. So it's always good to tell somebody about what's going on. So that experience rocked me just for a little bit, just for a little bit. But I knew that no matter what the circumstances, I'm going to have to beat it by just going out and being brave about it. And not everybody can actually do that. So that was just one of my traumatic experiences that I had in my life. And that's what the question that I was going to ask before, like, have you sought out any kind of professional help or any kind of therapy to actually address your issues? And not only just that, there were many of other issues, but for me, on a personal level, I have people in my life, I have people in place in my life, that I speak to. Some are professional and some are not. These are just individuals that I can confide with. And then you also may have someone that you can speak to you on a professional level. So it's good to have somebody in your circle, a tight brotherhood, so that when something goes down, you'll have someone to connect with and go to. So that's what it's pretty much like for me. So yes, I did seek, some help. Not from that particular incident, but whenever I have issues in my personal life, whether it's dealing with relationships, whether it's dealing with finances, you want to speak to someone who's a financial expert or whatever like that, because there is such thing as financial trauma, that people experience as well. So I have, sought help in that particular regard. And so I would like to ask this question: has anybody ever hindered you from getting any kind of help that you actually need? Because sometimes people like to throw a monkey wrench. Oh, you don't need to see no counselor. Why are you talking about this particular topic? And I know that self care is a very popular theme right now, but sometimes self care uh, is also outsourced with someone outside of you can help you too. But then there's this thing to where people would like to throw a monkey wrench in there and saying that you don't need the help, or you don't need to see a shrink, which they will call them. You don't need to see a counselor. Help yourself. Have you ever, any of you ever experienced anything of that nature?
Yeah, I've experienced that before. Being in a relationship, sometimes you want to get help for yourself.
Welcome to your NFL headlines
Give me
of the
one
day.
second. sometimes when you want to get we don't want to get help for yourself, what happens is that the person that you're with will stop you from doing it, because more than likely, if you get healed, then it's going to reveal something in them. So what they'll do is they'll probably say, hey, you don't need to do that. You know what I mean? We should talk this out. Yeah, that's good and well, but sometimes, what's causing me trauma is them. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out how to handle it. So sometimes they will actually, come around and try to keep you from going. And also, we have a stigma in our community anyway, where we don't have a history of getting help when we need it. So yeah, that has happened to me before as well too. Sometimes people just don't want you to get better because it'll start to see things differently, and people stop
Mm.
being able to use you for what they need to use you for if you get healed. So that happens sometimes.
Right. I would definitely love to piggyback off that. I can name personal instances with several between family, best friend, so called, what have you, where, of course, if this is somebody that you really confide in, supposed to be close to you, then you feel like, okay, I can tell you about what's been going on with me, what's been happening, etc. Unfortunately, not everybody has your best interests in mind. And it's basically like Brother Rob was just saying. A lot of people don't want to see you succeed or be better. Number one, it could be because they're jealous of you. Number two, a lot of times misery loves company, which I think is more what you were saying, brother. Like they don't want to see you succeed because it makes them feel less about theirs. And even though they could have, and I've been in a situation where they had houses and they had wives, children, dogs, cars, but so worried about what little old me doing in my little studio apartment, you know? And when I'm coming into certain things about things, is just, you don't need help. What you need to go to a doctor for? Just have a drink. I'm about to drop you off a bottle. Let's hit the
Mm.
club.
Mm.
Right? It sounds familiar, gentlemen, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Right. And I'm sure growing up as a man, especially black man, we've always had somebody at some point in our life that was their solution. And they might have tricked us, into going to those routes. But those things is never the answer. But they will do that. They will do that. Loved ones, people that you're in a romantic relationship with. If they don't want to see you go to a certain thing, or they want to keep you in a certain part because they're afraid they might lose you if you get well, they will also hinder your progress. They will also tell you, oh, everything's fine. Or they'll tell you, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. You do this, you do that. Okay, if I'm crazy, then maybe I need to get help. You know?
Right.
So unfortunately, there is a lot of people. You have to be very careful who you bring your situation to, your trauma to. And I had to learn this over, I would say, two lifetimes, basically, because that's the way it's basically felt and played out. And so now I've learned my lessons because I came to a lot of people trying to explain, hey, this was going on, that. Like I said, relatives, best friends, like the closest of close, closest of close. The
Yeah.
same ones that talk to you about all their infidelities, or if they got mad with their wives, or their children's going through things, or they're even having certain thoughts or whatever. The same people that confide in you and things 10 times worse going on than what you might got going on right now.
Mm.
And you'll talk to them as a friend, as a brother, as an uncle, as whatever the case may be. But when you go to them with
Mhm.
that one thing is all it takes. When they see a chink in the armor, they start with the nail and the hammer. Trust me.
Yeah. 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 I wanted to piggyback on that, and I know that the other two want to probably say something too. I think sometimes family is probably the biggest proponents of that too, because people hold on to family secrets and they don't want word to get out. And a lot of stuff goes on. It can be like abuse and molestation. It can be like rape and divorce, a lot of issues going on, money wise, insurance and all that stuff like that. A lot of the trauma, especially like with the children and all that, and they'll try to keep you and hold you back from seeing some sort of professional help outside of the home. And yes, this happens to a lot of people, not just within our community, but this is a global issue, that's going on. And I think that it does happen within certain cultures, but that's something that needs to be dealt with, because people need to be educated and let people know that seeing a counselor could help them, and there's no shame in it. You know, there's no shame in seeing it. It can create a place that is safe for each and every single one of you if you decide to want to see a counselor. And to me, I think that's very, very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
I think just to jump over what you were saying, Omar, in our community, there's just a high level of distrust in families for like outside people, outside organizations, whether it's the police, therapists, child protective services, things of that nature. Our community, we see them as a threat. So that often will stop us from getting the help that we need, or it'll discourage people from getting the help that they need. I just recently seen a child, and she reported some very horrific sexual molestation that went on in her lifetime. So, so as a mandated reporter, I told her that I will have to report this. Um, I will have to report it to like the Child Protective Services. And of course, when after you do something like that, the Child Protective Services will come out to the house and
Mhm.
interview to see what's going on. And
Yep.
they actually instructed the individual not to see me anymore because they felt like I broke the person's trust by telling what happened, by reporting what happened of what the person told me. And they stopped seeing me because of that. And that happens a lot in our community. Like they don't realize the level of trauma that this young person is going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives if they don't get help. They were just more concerned that they don't want that nobody coming into their home, looking through their cabinets, asking them questions, interviewing them, and doing all this stuff because a report was made. But they're not looking at the other side of it, like how this child is going to have to carry this all the way through adulthood if they don't get the right help or if they don't get the right protection that they need. So what you're saying is absolutely right. And just to answer the question, like I've never had someone directly stop me from receiving help, but kind of like the rest of the guys said, it's more indirect.
Hmm.
Like instead of saying, "Yo, you need to talk to somebody," say, "Hey, let's go out for a drink, let's go smoke something. I got these girls over here. Come, you stressed, let's that's a stress reliever. Like you said, there's family secrets. So they won't say don't get help, but they say, hey, you better not tell nobody what happened in his house.
Mhm.
Like even church sometimes, like if you grew up in church, they probably won't say go don't. They probably will not say don't go for therapy, but instead they'll say, we're gonna pray this away.
Mhm.
We're gonna pray this demon out or something like that. So
Absolutely.
it's an indirect thing, but it happens and it becomes like our way of thinking where we feel like therapy or stuff like that is not an option. Even if they're not directly telling you don't go for it.
It's very interesting that when you bring up the church, and I think that it's mostly because there are many folks who have a misunderstanding, actually on both sides. But for me, just speaking about the church, is that many of them were kind of a little bit not really educated in a way, in a sense, about professional counseling and what psychiatry is, what psychology, not psychiatry, but in just the counseling altogether in of itself, because they think that it's worldly and that you shouldn't participate and stick to only the biblical principles, which is still good. However, many of them, like you said, they'll pray it away or look at the pastor as infallible in a way. Speak to him, and he or she would say things to them uh, that they think that they believe that they would want to hear. But in the long run, it can do a lot of damage, and it can do a lot of damage in the long run. But then you have people who are in positions in the church who are trained, who are excellent and skilled counselors. Those are the ones who I could recommend people to. So that's a very, very serious issue that is going on within the church as well.
The funny thing about that, Omar, even the Bible says there is safety in the multitude of counsel. So
Yes.
if you really think about it, you should get help from other sources, professional sources as well too, to allow you to deal with that. But sometimes, man, church don't always serve us in certain ways in certain circumstances because they're trying to get something out of the deal. You know what I'm saying? Indirectly. But you should always seek help. Find somebody who has a different vantage point from where you are to see how to help you. And you don't know it unless somebody points it out to you. But you have to be aware first.
Absolutely. Well, church is just like any other close knit organization. When you want to keep your audience there within you and everything that you organize with. For instance, if you go and you join a sports team, a Nike comes at you with a deal. Okay, from here on, all they want you to see is a Nike hoodie, Nike sneakers, Nike this, Nike that, whatever. Even though maybe the Reeboks fit you better, but at the end of the day, they want you to hear what's a part of their organization or what works and flows for them. A lot of times in church situations, I feel that that's the same way. They'd rather you come and seek help from them because of where they get their teachings and knowledges from and what they want to pass on. Um, because they want that to be your first place of response for any type of emergencies like that or things like that. But unfortunately, sometimes you need to speak outside of your realm. And this is one of the reasons why I had to move completely out of state to reset most of my trauma. Because sometimes, you come to people that there's going to be a prejudice there, and not even in a bad way, because they care about you, this, that, what have you. You're talking to somebody that knows you. They're not going to be that outside person to say, well, yeah, maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe you shouldn't do that because they're your buddy, or they're your sister, or they're your coworker, or whatever the case may be. So a lot of times it's good to go outside of your source, your normal environment, to get help, to speak someone that don't know you, don't know whatever, but's well versed when it comes to, like I said, talking with people about trauma, things like that. A lot of times you'll see a whole different response than those around you, especially those that's hating on you, don't want you to succeed anyway.
Yeah. So at this particular moment, uh, this is one of the questions that I want to ask you. Uh, okay, wait, here it is. In what ways has your cultural background influenced your approach to processing and overcoming trauma? In what ways has your cultural background influenced your approach to processing and overcoming trauma?
I'll
Generally,
be happy to jump in there first.
no, go
So
ahead.
I think, yeah. So basically, like a lot of stuff I seen in childhood, like only adults that see and hear and experience and things like that. So at an early age, especially being a young black man, seeing everything that was on TV, everything that we were learning, even in my era, there was still a lot of civil rights things going on and things like that in the 80s, 90s, whatever the case may be. So I was still growing up with that. I already knew we already had a disadvantage as far as with the environment, as far as with community, as far as with the government and everything out here. Because we got to jump the extra mile, we got to go the extra mile because they already see us and say, especially you're a black kid from Newark, especially from the block that I'm from. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, he's not worth nothing. He's not going to do this. He's not going to do that. So I already knew I had that disadvantage. So that's why I worked hard in school. I also knew with the family background, a lot of things that was going on in there. Once I got to a certain age, none of me and my generation was going to have any help because the way I seen the older generation getting down and trust, like I said, I'm like 9, 10 years old. This is no lie. I just saw things, and like I said, I guess I was around so much adult things that then I got a mature mind, and I just see like, okay, and everything they're doing is exactly what they expect us to do when they watch us on TV or when they read about us in newspapers or things like that. You got all this generation of kids under you, and y'all are not changing your habits of doing anything whatsoever. So, with me, I just know that I wanted to prove I'm not going to be a statistic, not by my race, not by where I'm from, not by any mental illness, not by any emotional or spiritual things I'm going through. So that's kind of like as far as cultural background, as far as on my end, that's pretty much my story.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
One of the things I've noticed is that at birth, we are assigned a certain level of trauma. And if you're a black man, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? It's you get assigned, you're the protector, you're the provider. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing, and it opens you up to things like financial trauma and physical trauma. You know what I'm saying? As a man, you should conduct yourself a certain way. And AB will talk about it in his book from times, the sexual miseducation of the black man in America, how we're trained to handle certain situations, with our sexuality. And what happens is that you are assigned trauma at birth when you're born. And it says that, a man should do certain things. And with that being said, you get opened up to a whole different can of worms, a whole different situation where your trauma is assigned to you, And one of those things is that when you're in relationships or something like that, people expect you to carry the load. You know what I mean? Instead of being a willing participant in your relationships. And sometimes people take advantage of that. And it causes, like we said earlier, financial trouble. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, you learn not to trust people anymore because people like to take advantage of big, strong men. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes people don't always ask the strong person, are you okay? They just automatically assume that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And
Yeah.
what happens is that is a form of trauma that is assigned to us at birth, but we
Mm-hmm.
never speak about it until something happens. And one of the things that I noticed growing up is that, as you get older, it seems like the men disappeared, first. And then there was always Big Mama left. And I had to watch and I sat back and I realized is that the men have been working themselves to the ground, and nobody assists them with whatever it is that they're assisting them with. And what happens is those men don't they're not aware that they're being traumatized because it's something that is expected. Sometimes our community can reinforce trauma without even knowing it, you
Mm-hmm.
know and men work themselves to death. So that's the reason why when you get older, Big Daddy is usually the first one to go. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And then Big Mama after that. You know what I mean? It's usually because so much trauma has been assigned to men, through cultural expectations that, it goes unsaid. So it's not something that you really identify as, being trauma, but it definitely is if you think about it. You're supposed to live a long and prosperous and fruitful life, but if life is weighing on you a little bit heavier just because you're male, then it teaches you to not to take care of yourself. As men, we know we neglect ourselves. We have to be drugged to the doctor's office, because we're always busy working, and we use work as a shield from our trauma. You know what I'm saying? Oh, if I can just go to work, I'll be fine. No,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, brother, you need to
Yeah.
take care of yourself. You won't be able to go to work, to get the things that you need to stop ignoring yourself. And as men, we take pride in being tough. You know what I'm saying? That's the trauma I was telling you about. That's the scientists at birth, because we're men, and sometimes people reinforce that trauma through expectations, and we just don't get the help that we need.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah. Hey, AB.
go ahead, bro.
Oh, no, no, that's all right. You can go first.
Think what both of you brothers are saying, it reminds me of this term that we often use in psychology is learned helplessness. That learned helplessness is like when you been through so much trauma in your life, and I'm talking about as a culture, as Black people, since we landed or since we've been kidnapped and put on in this land, like you dealt with so much trauma. You've been feeling so powerless for so long. Like there's so much stress. Um, there seems like no matter what you do, that you can never dig yourself out of a hole. No matter what you do, that like the results are gonna remain the same. Like you feel like you have like absolutely no control of the outcomes of your life. And I think as a people, that has been our culture for centuries. So and that's how we respond to trauma. Like we feel like there's no digging ourselves out of this thing. That's why so many Black people, we don't even vote because we think like, hey, what's the use? Like that's not for us. That's why we don't trust like law enforcement. Those to use that they're not for us. Like so, it's this learned helplessness that we develop, especially in this country and in our culture, because of our history and because of what's still going on to this present day. That we the trauma just takes over us, and that's the type of stuff that leads to depression and anxiety and things of that nature. Like if you're in a situation where you feel like no matter what you do, um, things won't get better. If I've been incarcerated, if I get out, there's no way I'm going to find a job because I have this knock on my record. So things is never going to get better. They get me. I'm trapped in this child support system, so I have to stop working a job that's going to give me a W-2. So I got to work under the table because things ain't going to get better if I go that route.
Mm,
Like you feel is that learned helplessness, like I keep saying, and that's how we deal with our trauma. It affects us in a way, and then it makes that trauma even more complex. Because if I'm in a state of mind like things is never going to get better for me, like of course I'm going to get depressed. Of course I'm going to feel some type of anxiety. Of course I'm going to be dealing with some type of anger issues and things of that nature. So as far as culture goes and how it impacts the way we deal with trauma, I think it has a huge impact on it. It has a huge influence on the way we impact. That's why we. That's why most people don't seek help because they feel like there's no use. Like that person can't help me. The type of problems I have, no matter what you tell me, no matter what advice you give me, is not going to dig me out the hole that I'm in. And I think that's a huge cultural thing when it comes to us.
mm, and y'all pretty much uh, had already explained because I was going to ask the question earlier too, but y'all beat me to it. And that was the question of have you experienced any stigmas or stereotypes related to seeking help for trauma? Pretty much as a man in of itself, I think Gerard spoke to that question, so I'm gonna skip over that real quick. But unless one of y'all want to piggyback up on that, it's already been spoken, So, but however, uh, what role does self care play in your journey towards healing? From trauma. What role does self care play a role in your healing journey from trauma? So any of you have ever had this in your life? What role of self care that took place in your life? To your journey in healing for self trauma.
You know what? One of the things I realized, man, as a man, sometimes you have to take a break. When we were younger, we can just power through whatever it is. But as an older gentleman, as I'm starting to find out now, that you have to be aware of your body, man. It was a point in time, man, where I was just going every day, without stopping. You know what I mean? And we like to wear our work as a badge of honor. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to outwork me. And I started realizing, hey, you're not getting enough sleep. Your water intake is not what it needs to be. You're not as effective as you need to be. And sometimes you have to be aware of that. There's been certain situations where I've just taken a whole week off, man, just to reset and let everybody know, hey, I'm gonna be out of pocket for a minute. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get myself together. But as men, sometimes we don't always do that, because people are depending on us. So sometimes you have to teach yourself to be aware of what you're going through, because we don't normally do that, because like you said, as a man, we wear that badge of honor and we use work as a shield, to shield us from the world, but we still have to make sure that we get rest. Our body needs rest, man. So we also need to heal ourselves with nutrition, sleep, prayer, meditation, realign yourself. But sometimes we don't always do that. And when people depend on you, they get selfish and they say, well, before you go, I have one more thing. And then one more thing keeps turning into another one more thing. The next thing you know, you back at it again. So you have to set aside a certain amount of time for yourself when you need it, but you have to be aware of it. So I've had to do that before. I've had to just take a whole week off, no social media, no TV, know nothing. Just be by yourself and check on yourself sometimes.
Mhm. Absolutely. In my opinion, first and foremost, happiness starts with yourself. So you can sit down and you can talk to anybody, anyone, anything. If you're not going to get yourself right first and get yourself happy, you can't expect it out of anybody else around you or anybody else you're turning to. And this is what a lot of people don't get. And just like piggybacking off of what Brother Gerard just said, right, it's multiple things. Omar, you could give me the best dating advice in the world. You can tell me how to get the woman of my dreams. Perfect. And if I show there, drugged up, pilled up, stumbling, mumbling, then what was the point of you giving me that great advice to finally get that girl of my dreams? But I'm not even taking care of myself or living up to the expectations or to the blessings that I'm hoping to come to me. So we have to start with ourselves. We have to get our minds right. We have to get our bodies right. We have to get our finances right, our souls right. A lot of what goes on in the mental has bearings on the physical, and that's what a lot of people forget or miss out on. You'll ever notice when a lot of people, they're active and they're great and they're whatever, then they might retire or they might, need to slow down for one reason or another. Next thing you know, about a month or two, they're gone or they're sick because you're taking away that balance that they have in their life to get away from those things. So as far as with trauma and things like that, you have to start within yourself first. Self-care is the most important thing. Self-care also means you have to be a little selfish. So it's just like what we've all talked about. There's already a weight being put on us as men from before we get out the womb. Before we get out the womb, soon as they confirm it's a boy, oh, okay, we got somebody to take out the trash, protect the little sister, help mom, help dad with whatever, get a college degree, take whatever. We already got everything stacked on us. So that's already, we don't have that time. So when we're going through things, we need to break away from that. We need to take care of ourselves. That's the reason why moved all the way to Florida, moved away from everything I knew, because everything I knew here, I was not getting any better with anything that happened. And there was multiple things that happened that I never even had a time to mourn over, never even had a time to collect, because you got this one in your face wanting to fight, and you got that one in your face, let's go for a drink, let's have a drink, and you got that one in the face with the drama, and you got this one here with their problems. Oh well, yeah, man, I'm sorry to hear that you were suicidal. Yeah, but did you know what I caught Yolanda doing? Did you know what I caught? Right. And you have people like that where they won't take your thing seriously because theirs is going to supersede yours. You have to start with yourself first. That's first and foremost. I think that's with anything when it comes to rebuilding process. It starts with the base and then you build your way back up.
Mhm. Yeah, you know what? And to piggyback on that and starting with self, one of the things, because this was going to be actually the next question I was going to ask, and like, what did you do? What was the therapeutic process, that pretty much helped you? Uh, Navigate to your healing, to you actually being navigate yourself through to healing. So with me, there were a lot of things. For example, I lost my brother a couple of years ago, and I recently just posted about him because his birthday was just yesterday. And so it was a moment for me, where I have to step back and think about the memories that I pretty much had. So a lot of times in my self healing process, I journal. I like to journal a lot, or I'll read a scripture, I'll go into prayer, I'll talk to somebody. Another friend of mine, very, very good friend of mine, her name is Dana. You know, Hello out there, Dana. She has a sibling support group, pretty much that she was running, and pretty much maybe like once a week or something like that, every third Wednesday or something like that, she had a support group for siblings. So if you lost a brother or a sister or whatever like that, you could actually join that specific group. And so that's what I did. So I was, talking to somebody, that can help me, in that specific area for my healing. And so, as you see on the bottom of the screen, when it comes down to self care and recovery after trauma, join a support group that can help you as well, because you're coming into a space with other people who have shared experiences, and that support group can be from any topic, that's related to your trauma, the experiences that you have had. If it's like a loss of a pet, find a support group for that. If it's the loss of a sister, a aunt, a grandparent, or it can be other areas that you think that's not even listed, because there's a support group just for everything out there. So I would say do that. So that pretty much helped me in the process as well. And as Gerard was talking about going and taking a walk, go and do that. That can pretty much help you as well.
Oh yeah, I always feel like a walk guy. I do it all the time, all day, every day. So walking, putting my music in, that is always some of the best therapy you can have, especially if it's a nice day out. You got a nice area to walk through. Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. It's one of my best therapeutic, my little therapeutic secrets right there. Definitely. Just get away from it all, drown everything out, put your music on, or maybe you want to put on your gospel or, any
Mhm.
type of lectures, anything, it can be an audio book, just to get away for a minute, reset your mind, get your mind off all that, and, relax for a minute. And that helps your body. It relaxes your body because you're walking around tense from all this mental going on here and all these things. I definitely recommend the music, the walking, whether you do it together or separately. Also, get into a peaceful environment. That's always helpful too. Any place where you can get a chance to think, not overthink, not run yourself in the ground, but just think so you can think clearly. Because when you're around so much going on, you might be in a place where you're thinking about everything 24 hours a day, but you're not getting a chance to get anything clear because this is going on or that's going on, or your job is sitting up there being a pain in the neck. So that's not, you might enjoy going to work, but that's might not be the place when you're trying to get over some type of trauma or anything that's going on with you mentally. You have to get out of that space. That's always been the secret to my success. And I still have a long ways to go, trust me. But at the end of the day, I'm still a work in progress. I'm proud of that. And I could definitely tell you I've come a long way. And a lot of that is by removing yourself from the situation so you can reset, replan, and relive the situation.
Yeah. I think we can find self care in like some of the simplest things in life. Like it doesn't have to be something complicated. You don't have to take a trip around the world or go on these long journeys to Timbuktu for self care. Like it's simple things. Like for me, I learned how to say no. I've learned how to say no to some things. There was a time in my life where I felt like I needed to help everyone and do everything and put everything on my shoulders until I realized like that stuff burn you out. As men, we already feel like we, are responsible for everything, but we definitely have to learn how to delegate or just say no to some stuff. When it comes to social media, there's been a lot of pages that I had to unfollow because because they just will irritate me.
Mhm.
I will find myself going back and forth in these crazy discussions. And I had to come to the point like, listen, I don't have to read this person's post. Like I know I see people every day that get on social media just to argue,
Mm-hmm.
just to
Mm-hmm.
disagree. No, listen, do some self care. Unfollow something if it doesn't make you happy. Like you brothers are saying, the walks. I do that now. First, I used to walk just for exercise. Now I have to realize listen, I need to walk just to relax. The
Mm-hmm.
exercise is going to be a part of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking just to relax. And as I'm walking, I'm taking in everything that's around me. Like I'm paying attention to my breathing. I'm looking at the trees. I'm looking at the pets. I'm looking at the people wherever I'm walking. Like I'm really taking that stuff in and being present of what I'm doing. That's a part of what people might say grounding techniques now. Like you really be present of where you are. There's a time I'll go walking and I'm trying to do 100 things at a time. I'm trying to get in my steps and I'm trying to make phone calls at the same time. And I got to do this and do that. No, just enjoy, be present in what you're doing right then and there. Like I have a dog, just petting him is self care to me sometimes. Like
Absolutely.
he'll come sit next to me. I rub on his head. He lay his head on my knee, and I'm just sitting there petting him for I don't know for how long, and that's relaxing to me. You
Hmm.
know, everybody don't like dogs, but that's relaxing to me. As I've gotten older, I started to enjoy tea.
Hmm.
And so I'll make a tea and I won't get it in a to go cup like I used to do and try to drink and run and get to the next spot. No, I'll get some tea and I'll sit down at the table and enjoy every sip and just enjoy it. I'll just enjoy the taste of it. That all of that is part of self care. So some of the most simplest things in life can be self care when you really think about it. I get a good meal. I sit down and I eat slowly, savor every bite before I jump before I jump in the next thing instead of swapping down my food so I can get to the next activity. Just sometimes you just need to slow down and relax and take in what's around you.
You know,
Absolutely.
you're absolutely right, AB, as far as social media is concerned, because you know I'm a merchant in that thing, man. And and talking to people helps me to realize, to notice certain traumas, how people respond to you. It's like they're not really mad at me, they're really mad at themselves, but they want to take that out on me. And I had to do like you, man. I had to unfollow some people, man. I had to get them as out of my, so to speak, algorithm. You know what I mean? That's the new hotness, man. Once I realized how I could take control of my algorithm from what I can see, I learned how to tune certain things off. I learned to meditate a little bit more, and I just started drinking tea just like you, man. You know what I mean? I got me some lemon ginger over here too, man, and some of this other red tea. What you call it? What you call that tea? That red tea they got you. I got some of that too, man.
Maybe
And
the rosemary. They got some
yeah,
rosemary kind of
yeah.
red.
What's it called?
You know
I
what?
know
It's you said it's rosemary.
rose. I don't know. I know that's
Oh,
red.
yes, yes, yes.
That's
I
red.
had
Yeah,
that.
that's red.
Yes, matter of fact, I think I do have that. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, man, you have to drink that. I also bought a cup out of China. It's one of those little small teacups because I started noticing that you treat things a little bit differently when you take care. And it's a teacup that has been handcrafted by a master. You know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
you slowly sip that tea, and then when you drink it, you're drinking from art. You know what I mean? Those are some of those small things that you
Mhm.
take in. You know what I mean? So it's taking control of your particular moment, taking control of yourself and taking control of your life just by slowing down. And
Mm.
sometimes as men, we have to make sure that we slow down and save a life because you never know when your next day is. You know what I'm saying? Tomorrow is not promised. So it's like AB said, you got to take time to sip that tea, man, and enjoy every single moment, and don't rush it. Enjoy your life. When we're kids, we say, I couldn't wait till we get older.
Mhm.
Now it's like we trying to hold off as long as we can.
Mhm.
We try to enjoy every single day. But AB, you're absolutely correct, man. You got to take time for yourself.
All right, all right. So I'm going to ask one more question. Pretty much, we've been in here for about an hour, so I'm just going to ask one more question. All right. Um, how do you envision your life moving forward beyond trauma? And being that these things have happened in your past, what are you doing now? Like, what are you doing today that's helping you move forward from the experiences that you had in the past? What are you doing today?
Well, the thing I'm doing is I'm actually having conversations, man, with other people to make them aware of themselves because it feels good when you help somebody else other than yourself, especially when you've gotten over the hump with yourself. It's like, you know what, this feels good and I should share it. You know what I mean? And sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it with certain people, but if you give back a little bit, it actually helps you as well too. It teaches you to be patient. When it's time to be patient, it teaches you to be caring and kind when it's time to be caring and kind. And you get into the habit of being kind to yourself, then you're kind to others. And at that point, you can teach them to do the same thing. And it actually helps make the world a better place because it's already tough as it is. So if you can add a little sunshine in your corner of the world by taking care of yourself, then that just makes the world a little bit better place.
Hmm.
I think as for me, I just try to live a much more less stressful life. So I try to live by this saying, um, don't worry about things that I can control, and don't worry about things that I can't control. Because if I can control it, why am I worrying about it? I just do what I have to do to change it. But if I can't control it, also why am I worrying about it? Because I can't control it anyway. So I just try to live a much more stressful life. Of course, stress is gonna come. That's life. But things that I can't control, I don't try to control it. And I've learned not to put my expectation on other people. Um, I think that used to lead me to a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration, a lot of resentment. I would do things and expect people to respond the way I want them to respond or how I would respond. And I have to learn to just accept people for who they are. And just do things and understand that they will respond the way they're gonna respond. That stopped a lot of stress and a lot of negative feelings in my own life. As far as the traumatic things that might happen, I can try to avoid them. I can, life is about the choices we make, the decisions that we make. So I would hope that the more I make wise decisions, the more I can avoid some traumatic situations. But there's going to be some things like death. There's going to be things like sickness. There's going to be accidents that, are just sometimes unavoidable, and I'll just have to learn how to, like, with the self-care stuff. That's when I really have to implement the self-care. That's when I would have to go seek the help that I would need, like talk to somebody. That's when I would really have to surround myself with the friends and the loved ones, for that support system, because there's going to be some traumatic events that's going to happen in our lives that we have absolutely no control about. I mean, over, but we just need to have the tools and the skills to learn how to overcome those things. So that's how I'm trying to look at the whole thing these days.
Okay.
Um,
Oh,
for me myself, I've learned to move away from elements that causes those traumatic events or start triggering those type of trauma that gets me into certain things. At the end of the day, you have to move on. You have to learn to move on, or else you're always going to be stuck where you're at. You're going to be miserable. You're probably going to be sick. Things like that. I take it in two different ways. For you being in trauma, let's say for somebody that passed away, okay, and we've probably all been through it. I know I have. At the end of the day, and this is something that took me a while to get for somebody that was very close to me. You know what? They've passed along. They're in another life. I thank God with all this stuff going on now. I thank God that they're not here. I thank God that they lived the life that they lived and they're no longer here. And, they're resting in peace. That's fine with me. For the people that are here that did something to you, guess what? They've moved on. Not saying that they ever took a time out to stop about any trauma that they caused you anyway. Because most of them, they don't. They do what they do, they move on. They can bring it back, keep rubbing up in your face, keep reminding you this, that, whatever. Because most of the time they want to continue the trauma. It entertains them or it's some type of value to them. And at the end of the day, it's just like you can keep holding on to that, but how is it benefiting you? And that's something that took me a long time to understand. With all these people that want to argue, fight, and and keep it. And like I said, when you come to somebody and you may be over trauma over somebody you lost, and they're not listening, guess what? Kind of like what AB said, brother AB said, they are who they are. This person is who they are. You can't change them as much as you would like to, as much as you would want to. And for some of those people like that, you can't bring your trauma to. It's dangerous to bring your issues and your trauma to.
Yes, yes.
And so at the end of the day, you have to cut yourself off from anything that causes you those type of traumas. It's just like anybody that has an addiction and they go away to an addiction program. Never been to one, but had plenty of relatives and friends that have. You know, but they take you out of that environment. They show you something different. They replace what your everyday habits are with other positive things so you can get better. That's the same thing you have to do with trauma. You have to remove yourself from all those things that's triggering that trauma. That's the only way you're going to get better. And then from there, you stay focused on the things that's positive. And for me, it's been working, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's been in the office, whether it's been working out, like I said, just staying away from the negative things that causes the trauma, you'll have a lot less stress in your life. And I found that out several times to be one of the best things you could do. You just got to hit the reset button and don't make the same mistakes or invite the same mistakes back twice.
All right. Well, thank you, brothers, for actually being on here tonight. And as a matter of fact, let me just get just like each one of you just get just a one little small final thought. And then after your final thought, let everybody know where you're from and how they can actually locate you.
I guess I go first. My final thought is to make sure that you enjoy your peace. To protect your peace. And the only way that you can do that is to make sure that you check on yourself and that you're aware of yourself. And don't let anybody steer you from that, because after all, you're the only person that's really responsible for you at the end of the day. You can reach me online at Lost in Translation Podcast as well on YouTube, on Instagram, and also sometimes on Facebook. I usually try to stay out of that, but for the most part, we're here. Thank you for having me out this evening, Omar. As always, it's a pleasure.
My last thought is pretty simple. Life is about choices. So if you feel like you're living a life where you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're struggling with trauma, you're struggling with the triggers that's attached to some type of trauma, like find the help that you need. Why not try to live the life that you want to live? You don't have to continue to struggle. You don't have to continue to suffer. There's a lot of people out there that's willing to help. Don't let anyone deter you from getting the help that you need as well. Try to overcome all these generational beliefs about therapy, these cultural beliefs about speaking to someone, and seek the help that you need to in order to live the life that you want to live. My name is AB Bracewell. You can find me at my website, which is Embrace Wellness Therapy, Embrace Wellness Therapy, or on social media at AB Bracewell. And thanks for having me.
All right. My final thought is that if you need help with something, try and get the help you need because it's safer for you that you may not be a problem to somebody else in your personal life, but that you would find a way that's going to help you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, and connect with someone that can help you navigate uh, through your problems in life. So you connect with me here at Omar Lyles, the mental health coach. We're on YouTube. We're in our Facebook group, the mental health and coaching group. You can check us on there. You can also check my practice, Agape Love Network, LLC. We're also a mental health and coaching group at the same time. And other than that, pretty much just thank each and every single one of you for actually tuning in tonight and joining this wonderful group of brothers who I've been knowing for quite some time now. And we'll be on soon again. As a matter
Did
of fact,
Rob,
we have
did
a
Rob
lot
get a
more.
chance to? Did Rob
Huh?
get a?
Say it again?
Rob didn't give his final thought.
Uh,
That's all right. He was on the roll, so I appreciate
oh yeah, I forgot Robert. Oh man, yeah. All right, you go, Robert.
No problem. Now, I'll keep it short and sweet. Thanks for the shout out, brother. Keep it short and sweet. And it's one thing that one of my closest friends always says. He basically says that, it's okay to not be okay. And my thing to that is the only time when it's not okay to be okay is when you're not willing to do something about it. So please do. You deserve happiness. My name is Legend Damian Simmons, Damion. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can Google me. And I'm also with Inspire 23 Productions. So check out our show March 16th at the Avenel Performing Arts Center in Avenel, New Jersey. Appreciate you. Thank you. I love talking with y'all, brothers. It's been a while. So thanks for having me back.
All right,
Indeed.
I was about to sign off and stuff, man. I'm
Hey,
like,
it's
wait
all
a minute.
good.
It happens, man, to the
And
best
he had
of us.
to kick out. Wait a
Absolutely.
minute. Rob better go.
It's all
So,
love, brother.
so
Thank
thank
you.
each and every single one of y'all. So stay on just for just 1 minute, and then after that we're gonna head off. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
That'll work.
Peace,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.